Let's get that, and then we'll start the webinar in a minute. Once this is set up. Right. Get that, and then we'll start the webinar in a minute.
Oh, I see. You might have to also maybe like mute the YouTube, like if you got it open in a different tab, because it might lag and then we might still hear it on this end.
Yeah, I just closed it.
Okay.
I just closed it and then I lost my, there it is. All right, I think we are live. We are here. Hi, everybody. I can't see anybody that's logged in or anything right now, but we're at 10:30. So we're gonna go ahead and start. Welcome, everybody. My name is Aasia Mohammad Castañeda. I am the Community Partnerships Manager for the Chicago Food Policy Action Council, and we're here to welcome you to the 16th Annual Chicago Food Justice Summit. As people are logging on, we just want to go through some tech overview and intro. We do have translations going on, so we'll be speaking at a pace that make it accessible for folks to translate and listen. So we're gonna just go over these slides that our accessibility working group put together. A big shout out to this working group led by some awesome folks. And so first things first, so if you are joining via the Whova desktop app, it's going to look different than if you are on Zoom, and just wanted to give the difference on which and why. If you're on the chat in Whova, that's going to look different than if you're on the chat in Zoom, and just wanted to clarify, like, people on Zoom platform cannot see the folks chatting on Whova and vice versa. So just a heads up about that. And Mirage, I know you worked on the accessibility. Feel free to chime in as I'm going through these slides. So just wanted to share this visual on, mute, unmute. This is a webinar platform, so it's obviously different. We have enabled live transcript. So if you scroll down on the bottom of the screen, if you're on Zoom, and if you click on CC, you'll be able to see live automatic English captions. This is, so just to set up the summit, like if you are in sessions, please rename yourself, add your pronouns. Again, speak slowly for translations. And when you speak, every time you talk, if you can please state your name for the folks that are using ASL. And for the people requiring Spanish interpretation, please use the chat. If you need help in accessing, we have a whole access team that will be on each session and on today that can support how you get to that globe if you're having a hard time finding it. Again, I went over this in the other slide, but this is how you access showing subtitles in order to see the captions. So if you'll have a choice, and I don't know, Candace and Mirage, if you want to chime in here, just a heads up, if you choose Zoom, again, the chat will look different, the platform will look different than if you choose Whova. Whova has a whole community board. People are posting jobs. There's all kinds of conversations on there. So please take advantage of that. It's really the best way for connectivity to happen virtually as much as we can during the summit. This is how to properly connect to audio. Again, please use the chat. We have a whole accessibility team to help folks out. Sorry. My screen is, okay. So again, there's all kinds of elements within Whova that lend itself for session engagement. This is just one of the ways. We want to, encourage people again to answer live prompts, ask questions, chat with each other, and connect. This is what the community board looks like on the Whova platform. So just again, just encouraging folks to connect on that. And this is how to access that help and chat on the community board, especially if you need help, technical assistance for ASL or Spanish interpretation. We also have a whole thread in Spanish as well. And that's it for me. I'm going to go ahead and pass it on to our board president, Erica Allen, and founder, and Roger Cooley, our executive director, to give the welcome.
Great, thank you so much, Aasia. We're so appreciative for all the work that everyone's done to get to this place. The over 1,000 folks who have registered for this event, the over 50 speakers, the many volunteers, the summit leaders who've all helped diligently plan this effort for months while dealing with and managing all the crises in the last year, and being able to hold the space for coming together and envision and reimagine what's possible over the next many years that we'll be doing this work, but over time and in collaborations has been wonderful to see. We'll do a quick presentation and then we'll get going. Right. Great. Again, this is the 16th annual Food Justice Summit. You can see kind of the links to get to the website with all of the agenda. You can follow us on @ShyFoodPolicy at many of your favorite social media sites. And then on our website, chicagofoodpolicy.com. Again, you can come back to the resources here, but many other resources throughout from the event, but also shows a lot of the good work that we're doing with a lot of our partners. We've been around since 2001, as Aasia mentioned. Erica and I, who were part of the original co-founding, came from 2001, 2002, when we really got going from a convening at a state level, at the Illinois state level, really bringing together folks who are thinking about emergency food work while seeing how there could be more holistic transformations or paired with holistic transformations through sustainable food development, economic development through local food efforts, and really recognizing that there's a lot of opportunities for collaboration to drive to that equitable future, and really needing to shift the policy context in the city and beyond to really make sure that those changes are sustainable, while over time being much more conscientious and deliberate about putting equity in front and racial justice as the core of the work. That the issues of institutional racism through many of the policies and practices throughout the system, food system beyond, are really the reason why we're here needing to do this work, to get to that other longer term visions of change. And so we've been having this summit. This is our 16th year, but this is the first year we transitioned from being calling it the Food Policy Summit to the Food Justice Summit. Really, again, bringing to the fore that that vision needs to be much more explicit about our work and how we're moving forward. It's policy isn't the end goal, it's the food justice is what we're trying to drive to. And so we've got 3 tracks of work within that, or 3 tracks of sessions throughout the whole event for the next 4 days. So one is looking at reimagining, so sessions focused on reimagining food system change. Holding policy, because recognizing a lot of change does need to move through policy. That's one of the biggest levers that we can pull collectively. So really how to make sure that policies are written, but also implemented in ways that do drive the equity that we're looking for. And then in practice, what's the combination of the envisioning the policy and what's going on the ground, and how to be supportive and collaborate to make sure that what we're envisioning is becoming real. So we've got lots of awesome things happening over the next 4 days. I mean, over 4 days, over the next 2 weeks. So today, starting with the welcome and keynote, there's going to be a lunch conversation extended with the keynote speakers for folks who want to have more of a back and forth and engaged conversation. And we'll start moving into the breakout sessions this afternoon. We had a Flavor and Reimagination committee come together and pre-record and share some different things, more hands-on things, like there's going to be a composting session, for example, one of these afternoons. But those are great things to be able to jump into. And then there's going to be yoga three days of the next few, starting tomorrow. And then it looks like they didn't make the schedule, but they should be next Friday and Saturday as well. So tomorrow, starting with the yoga, 2 rounds of sessions, and we really were trying to be conscientious of the Zoom life and break this up over time, recognizing that folks can be overwhelmed by the continual presence of being online. So spreading the conference out over the 4 days, and trying to really work on being accessible there as well. So folks dig into the schedule, find the sessions that you're most excited about, and jump in over the next few days. Also, in the middle of next week, there'll be some on-demand sessions that'll just be recorded and set up in Whova and you can also access through the SIFPAC website. That'll be ongoing throughout the sessions as well. Wanted to thank all of our amazing summit leaders. This was a new approach for us. They've all given so much time, energy, talent, passion to this work, and really want to be appreciative of all of the folks who have been engaged here. Candace Clark, who's done all the technical back end and a lot of wrangling to get here. We usually would be doing this in person, and the transition to online has been a heroic effort as we all gotten normed, and learning about every knob and switch and link that you have to follow through on to make sure all the accessibility is there. So incredibly appreciative for the perseverance, even as we're going through today. Lots of things to make sure, lots of technical things to tweak. With program and logistics, Oren Williams and Yasmin Martinez, the accessibility team, Trix and Taffy, Flavor and Reimagination, Wendy and Michelle, and the comms and engagement, Nora and Aasia. Thank you all so much. Also want to thank the many volunteers and session leaders who are giving freely of their time and energy and talents with the whole group. So thank you all so much. I know on the program logistics team, there was a team of folks who reviewed over close to 50 proposals to get down to the list of sessions that we have now, which was a lot of energy and focus and care and attention. So thank you all for that work. Want to thank our sponsors this year, the Greater Chicago Food Depository, Gourmet Gorilla, the Midwest Independent Retailers Association, Midwest Foods, and Star Farm. Thank you for the support. A lot of the money is going to the accessibility, paying for the resource of ASL, translation, Spanish translation, paying for the platforms. A lot of the money is going right back into the program itself. And also thanks to our other financial supporters, Food Land Opportunity, which is a program of Searle and CCT, the Margot and Thomas Pritzker Foundation, Chicago Regional Food System Fund, the Illinois Specialty Crops Grant Program, the USDA Local Foods Promotion Program, Walder Foundation, and GS Cares this year. Thank you all so much for the support to help underwrite all of this work. As an organization, and we believe that the summit is an extension and really catalyzes and crystallizes a lot of the energy and focus of our work. One is bringing together networks to help catalyze policy change and programs on the ground. So we've been doing a lot of that focused on COVID-19 response in the last year. We're really bringing together folks to build relationships. We see trust built through folks coming together across communities, across neighborhoods, across institutions, across sectors, as one of the really valuable pieces that we can help bring to the table, and see the summit as kind of the cornerstone of a lot of that work. Really bringing together folks to learn from each other and share, bringing folks to really be able to communicate and talk about what they're learning on the ground, what resources they have, what problems they're running into, and how to collaboratively get over that. And again, and part of that being more transparent about what resources are out there, but also how to navigate into fairly opaque systems that institutions and governmental systems have. So how to help folks come together and learn about how to get what they need and who they need to talk to get where they need to get there. And then really highlighting the successes that are out there, and really sharing celebrations as people have made incredible progress and done lots of awesome work over the last year, but also many years and moving forward. I want to deeply thank our staff and board. We've been really able to grow in the last year. I want to thank Aasia Mohammad Castañeda, Miraj Sheikh, Marley Wilson, Steph Funk, Dakari Howard, and Ashia Aberg, who's just joined our team. Really excited for all the perspective and passion that they bring to this work. Our board, who are as much as partners as they provide leadership and direction for the organization. The close collaborations and intersections that we have for helping to build the movement and really ground and anchor the work that we do, and make sure that we're staying on the right path, is always incredibly valuable. So thanks to Anton Seals of Grow Greater Inglewood, Kimberly Wasserman of the Little Village Environmental Justice Organization, Jose Oliva from the Heal Food Alliance, Daniel Block with Chicago State University, and Erica Allen with the Urban Growers Collective. And wanting to turn it over to Erica and to share some of the thoughts that she has as we're moving into kind of the theme of radical reimagination this year. Erica and I said earlier, have been partners on this work in and out in many different ways over the past 20 years. So it's an honor and privilege to be able to introduce her today.
Thank you, Roger. And just thank you so much for your perseverance over these many years. And for the board, just all the work that your teams that you do and your teams do to make Chicago a more food just city, but really to address structural racism and institutionalized poverty that manifests through the food system. And it's just been a great privilege to be able to do this work for a solid 20 years, which it officially is a solid 20 years, 21. So I'm excited just to share a few. I have 2 slides of images that kind of represent 3 slides actually that represent just food for thought. I'm going to speak from the perspective of the I, of the sort of the I organization that I work out of, but I don't want this to be about the one singular organization in the things I share, because we are and always have worked collectively. The ability to sort of be in place in situ, to be working in real time within our communities, not sort of community in a generalistic form, but in actual community, with community, being part of community, is a key to this work. And the reimagination around how we see ourselves as citizens and as active agents within our own environment. And we're in such a privileged position here in Chicago because we have so many natural resources. We have water, although that is a battle to be able to access, which I think we've made some headway this year, the collective we. The fact that we do have land, it's contaminated, but we do have land that with collective strategy and work can be made available and transformed to the soil literally transformed to be healthy, reflecting, of course, that transformation and revitalization that we want to see within our own physical ecosystems and our community systems. And of course, that would manifest in a different kind of food system. So this slide is one of the reimagination pieces. So this is Malcolm Evans, who's our farm manager, but he started when he was 10. This is the picture on the like doing my right left. On the left is when he was about 10, maybe 11 here, in a trip up to Milwaukee to Growing Power, and where he was super inspired, so much so that he's stuck with it and is now has a family of his own and is a farmer. Can you go back? I don't know who's doing the slides, but go back. What's important for in that image? Can we go back to, yeah, thank you. What's important with this image is that youth have to be part of the work, not as a sort of add-on or let's bring in the youth or let's layer the youth, but the youth are the future. So, which is obvious, but I think that we need to really think about that differently and not think about ourselves that we were once all youth. We were all once younger. And for real transformation, we have to be able to stick with our communities over a longer trajectory. And go to the next, for real change. So I really hope that throughout the sessions that you all are thinking about how we're engaging, enabling, involving, empowering, and really like almost immediately thinking about, okay, let me help while I'm still accomplishing, manifesting the vision that I have. Let me make sure that these young people that are right behind me are ready to step into my shoes. And that's a strategy. That's an organizing strategy. That's a sustainable strategy, but something that we need to really incorporate in all of our work. This image is from South Chicago Farm. And it really, the idea that we work in silos. So I'm an artist, an art psychotherapist, and a farmer, and I like to do systems change work. Those are not mutually exclusive, right? Those are part of being a complex person. And we can use our spaces, and I think many of us are doing this, and reimagining how we build economies around healthy food systems as an act of reparations. And looking at that, I said it like that, act of reparation, because I think that the repair we have to be ready to do the repair work. And we also need to be able to articulate what that looks like. And to me, it is very much empowering and providing living examples so that the next generation can really take up this work as we're transitioning us older elder folks into other arenas. And this is Boise Tagi from Grow Greater Englewood and Sisters in the Village. So shout out in the apprentice program, but also simultaneously leading incredible work with Grow Greater Englewood with the Englewood Trail, which is a powerful equity building space just to have safe, beautiful, verdant, pathways to walk and be. I mean, just something that we don't even think about, I think, that is not currently available in all communities in Chicago. So just reimagining how all those pieces intersect during our time together over the next 4 days. And the last one is, this has been a long time coming, but we got to have our soil. We have to have fertility and the ability to really be self-determined around energy. So this is a project that I'm hoping will benefit, I know it'll benefit all of us who do this food system work on the ground, because we'll have fertility, which is a difficult thing to have a consistent, large enough scale amount of material to be able to grow on any scale, but also as a way to really begin to accelerate our participation at the community level in climate resilient activity that's culturally based. So I'm excited to just share this and just to kind of give the scalability, like the things that you're doing on your patio and your backyard are just as important and impactful as something of this size, and that they're interconnected, and that we're thinking about our systems in decentralized ways, but also knowing that there's some larger meta systems that have to be, they have to be adjusted so that they're actually working for the citizens of Chicago. So those are just a few little things to kind of spark the reimagination. That is what I was asked to share. And just really excited to be part of this work and on this continuum, and excited to see and hear all of the things that'll come out of the Food Justice Summit for 2021. So thank you. And thank you, Roger, for all your work and your patience and leadership in this movement.
Thank you so much, Erica. Deeply appreciative for all the work that you're doing, and super excited for the Green Era project to be manifested after the 10+ years of work wrangling the institutions and funding and all the projects out there to permits and everything that it takes to get such a complex project off the ground, and know that that the ground is broken, and within the next year that'll be active and be a dynamic part of the movement and community. So thank you. Wanting to hand it back to Aasia for moving forward to the next parts of the conversation today. Thank you.
Yeah, so we're gonna go ahead before we start the event. I'm gonna introduce Ben Krause-Decora from the HoChunk Nation to lead a land acknowledgement. And thank you so much, Ben, for doing this. And I'll let you introduce yourself and the acknowledgement. Thank you.
Good morning, everybody. My name is Ben Krause-Decora. I'm an enrolled member of the HoChunk Nation. I'm the Community Outreach Director for the HoChunk Nation here in Chicago. We have a government office here in Chicago, and I'm coming to you live from the office here. The HoChunk Nation is a sovereign government headquartered out of the state of Wisconsin. It's an independent nation and government that does not fall under the jurisdiction of any city, state, or U.S. government. The HoChunk Nation has 7,890 tribal members. The greatest concentration is in Wisconsin. However, a majority of tribal members don't live in Wisconsin. Rather, they live in other states in the U.S. The greatest concentration of HoChunk Nation members that live outside Wisconsin reside in the states of Illinois, Minnesota, California, Texas, and Michigan. Thank you for being here today. I would like to begin by acknowledging that the land on which we gather here virtually today was once the ancestral home to thousands of HoChunk Nation tribal members and other indigenous people. In a 1832 treaty, the HoChunk people were forced to cede this land. Decades of ethnic cleansing followed by both federal and state government repeatedly but unsuccessfully fought to forcibly remove the HoChunk Nation from Illinois. Today, the city of Chicago respects the inherent sovereignty of the HoChunk Nation, along with many other First Nations of the Midwest. The state of Illinois is currently the home to over 75,000 tribal members, and the HoChunk land area is currently home to one of the largest and most diverse urban communities in the U.S. Illinois is also the territory of the HoChunk, Miami, Inaka, Menominee, Sac, Fox, and their descendants. I would also like to acknowledge the enduring presence, deep traditional knowledge, laws, and philosophies of all indigenous people of whom we share this land today. Today, you'll be hearing from a member of our tribe, the HoChunk Nation, Alana Terry. To hear more about her, I would like to hand it back off to Aasia.
Thank you so much, Ben. It's just an honor to have the HoChunk Nation be a part of this program. Appreciate you all. So I have the great honor to introduce Elena Terry. She's the executive chef, founder of Bearies, a nonprofit community outreach catering organization. She's also one of the Native American Food Sovereignty Alliance's lead mentors for the Food and Culinary program. One of her passions has been developing mentorship programs that help build stronger communities within Indigenous food sovereignty movements while empowering participants and establishing healthy relationships. As a seed-to-table chef, Elena advocates highly for Indigenous and organic growers and producers. She utilizes her partnerships with the Intertribal Agricultural Council, University of Wisconsin, several tribal members, tribal farms, as well as her own farm to provide and preserve ancestral ingredients in her community. In promoting the use of traditional ingredients and methods of cooking, she also partners with ethnobotanists to provide education about wild food and foraging in the communities she works with. Elena started as a traditional and ceremonial cook and is a member of the HoChunk Nation. She's a wild game specialist and prefers open fire outdoor cooking. However, she is also a trained chef and loves to challenge herself in executing multi-course plated meals.
Hello, hi Nipi, hi Nikaragiwi. HoChunk Rajada, ha Heimani Winga Hingaide, Naga Maichere Rajada, Elena Teriga Hingaide. I just wanted to greet you all. Good morning and a wonderful day. Thank you for that beautiful introduction, Aasia. Some of you might know me. I am a member of the HoChunk Nation and a chef, but some of you might not know that I actually grew up in Chicagoland. I lived in Willowbrook and I went to Hinsdale South High School. I spent my summers in Wisconsin Dells with my mother's family, but I went to school in Chicagoland and lived with my father, who was actually a really well-known jazz musician. He was an incredible musician, and he would take us to all the music festivals in Grant Park. When we were little kids, we would be the ones running around backstage, and I would look at him in awe as to this beauty he was creating and the people enjoying it. We would ride our bikes up Lakeshore Drive and stop to play chess or jump in the lake for a cool dip. And every time I think of Chicago, I think of my father and my brother and those memories growing up. So the city definitely brings great memories and comfort for me. And I appreciate the times I've been able to be involved in wonderful events like this in the city of Chicago and support all the beautiful work that's being done in my home. And so thank you, Aasia. I actually have had the pleasure of cooking with you, of cooking for you, and of walking through the cornfields with you. And I appreciate being invited here. So I was thinking I would share with you this story of a bean. And here for HoChunk Nation, and we have always been valued corn. Corn is a part of our ceremonies. It's a part of our life. It's a special treat in the winter months. And there are three sisters that grow perfectly well together: the corn, the beans, and the squash. And these three plants look out for each other, they care for each other, and they thrive together. So the HoChunks have always, continued on growing our ancestral corn. And a few years ago, my seed saver, Jessica Greendeer, and I were talking about the squash and the beans. We had to have grown these together. And we didn't have access to anything that we could validate was ancestral or grown by our ancestors in our homelands. And then Jessica was gifted a Winnebago squash. So HoChunks were formerly known as the Wisconsin Winnebago, and we were able to trace that squash being grown back to our ancestors a couple hundred years ago in the Wisconsin area. And so we had the corn, and then we had the squash, and we thought there had to have been a bean, right? And we searched seed savers, we went to the Smithsonian, we reached out to friends, and I happened to get a package from my friend Chris Hubbard, and he's from Appalachia and is a seed saver, a seed steward, a multi-generational caretaker of seeds. And I had ordered some salve, for my skin. And in this box came this beautiful packet, and it had a traceable history of where the seed had been. It was a HoChunk seed, and it was a bean. And it just arrived over the winter for us. When we needed that connection the most, this bean showed up. I like to think that in some way it was the bean's intention nudging Chris to send it back here. Because for whatever reason, he had that thought of me and of me being HoChunk in this land and thought, I have this bean that I've been caring for. And the most amazing thing about this was when he did return it, it had on that envelope a traceable record of its journey. So from the time that HoChunks were moved off to their homelands, this bean traveled with them. And it went to South Dakota, back to Wisconsin, to Nebraska, back to Wisconsin. And then somewhere along the way, it decided to take a long slumber with our friends in Kentucky. And when it returned, it was so beautiful and so emotional. Like we had the three sisters reunited on our homelands, that there had to have been intention. And, when I saw this first little bean grow with a flower attached, all I could think of was our work is being driven by intent and mindfulness, care and kindness. And the proof of that is in this little bean that came to fulfill its destiny with our people right now, today, and nourish us in a way that only this bean can. It was so life-changing that I actually personally declared for myself that the year 2020 would be the year of the bean, and I would do everything I could in my power to promote the beautiful and incredible and nutritional properties of these amazing plants, these beans. And we were able to grow out enough that this year we'll be able to multiply those seeds again, and hopefully I will be able to grow some of them in our home garden here, and maybe in 5 years, we'll be able to distribute those beans to our communities so that they will continue to fulfill their destiny with our people and nourishing us in a way and connecting us in this way that only they can. And they showed up for us. So from the seed savers, the growers, the foragers, hunters, producers, or chefs, we all have a role that we connect with in our food systems. Because one thing is universal, we are all consumers. We all have to eat. So what can we do today to ensure that bean will continue to nourish our future, so that one day my grandchildren will be telling their grandchildren as they plant these beans, how this bean, in being planted, actually planted seeds of hope in their grandmother. In a time when we needed that nourishment and that connection, our ancestors returned this bean and set into motion intentional forward movement. We have to think of the future, not just live in the moment. And we must remember the lessons of our ancestors in order to envision a better tomorrow. So, radical reimagination. What is it? To me, when I hear the term, I think of drawing inspiration from experiences, from people, places, and knowledge that has been shared in beautiful ways. I could ask you all right now to close your eyes and think of the most favorite meal that you've ever had. And in doing that, you can probably elicit the flavors, the smells, the people you shared that meal with, and the place that it took you to. Food is this wonderful vessel that can transport you in time and space. It can incite memories and feelings, sensical, in your blood almost. So we take that inspiration and we turn it into ideas that spark movement, ripples of forward motion that become permanent flows between space and time. Radical reimagination is the power to look beyond to the future while being mindful of the present. It's about being intentful and able to see positive change. Radical reimagination starts with an individual spark and snowballs into movement, into theories of change that future generations will continue to benefit from. It's about reimagining the power of the individual and our ability to support each other across socioeconomic lines, race lines, or gender. It's about breaking walls that segregate and barriers that divide. It's about seizing the moment and realizing your place in this moment, knowing that the intentions you set in place today can help change the world for tomorrow. Not only can they help, they will change the world for tomorrow. So how does that relate to food security? How can we be healthy if we're hungry? How can we take control of our moment and decide that we can change the way we nourish ourselves, that we can change the way we care for each other? We hold that power to decide that the forward movement will continue and how it will continue. And hopefully, with efforts like this, with beautiful events and intentions by the people that put this on and brought us together to share in this way in these days, we will be able to spark that forward movement. We will be able to radically reimagine our food systems for each other, for our families, for our communities, and beyond. So thank you again for inviting me to be a part of this. I look forward to the conversation, and leading up to this, I've been so inspired by the work. I can't wait to be able to go home and share with all the wonderful things that you're doing in Chicagoland and beyond. Thank you.
Thank you so much. We're the whole staff is having a whole moment. Right? Everybody's like having a moment right now, Elena, what you just shared. Moving, and especially in talking about the three sisters, we've actually have talked about that as a metaphor for organizing. So I'd love to dive deep more into that with you and Jose. But we are going to continue this conversation, adding another amazing speaker, Joseluis Ortiz y Muniz. And I'll introduce Joseluis right now. Joseluis is an indigenous land-based native New Mexican from the Genizaro land grant, La Merced de Santo Tomás, el Apóstol de Río de las Trampas, village of Llano de la Yegua, and currently lives with his daughter Corina and life partner Lucero in his maternal village of San Antonio del Rio Embudo, or modern day Dixon, in the high desert of northern New Mexico. With roots in traditional agriculture that has passed on intergenerationally through his family. He maintains a traditional land and a sequoia-based way of life on land his family has stewarded since time immemorial. He was born and raised and grew up in farming of the high llanos of the Sangre de Cristo Mountains and the low valleys of the Embudo River Valley. He and his family grow beans, corn, squash, chile, legumes, fruit trees, wheat, sheep, horses, pasture, and hundreds of other fruits and vegetables. He and his family practice a traditional regenerative biodynamic agriculture that has been sustained and maintained through generations of lived practiced relationship with the land, water, and the natural environment where they have thrived. So I'm going to add Elena to this conversation, and I'll moderate, but would love to hear your thoughts on the three sisters or reflections right now that are coming up for you. Joseluis, thank you and welcome. Thank you for joining.
Good morning, everybody, and thank you so much for having me join you. And I just want to express what a great honor it is to share with all my brothers and sisters and share this space with my sister Elena and all the folks who have organized this wonderful event. Sister, that was an amazing opening piece you shared. On top of everything, you're also an incredible poet and storyteller. And yes, it's just such an honor to share this space with you. I'm also honored that I have several people sharing in the audience here with me, mentors and elders who I greatly respect, Don Bustos and Baba Orrin Williams, among others. It's just great to be able to share my story and share the story of the work that my mentors, elders, and teachers and community members are accomplishing here in the Southwest, New Mexico. And, you know, for a lot of folks who maybe aren't familiar with New Mexico ain't quite a state. It's more of a export colony of the United States. And what we find here is we have a lot of incredible disparity. The ability for the community to exercise and practice our economic and cultural self-determination has been extremely diminished by the nation state. And with that, what we find is an incredible resilience in land-based communities of this region. I come from a traditional land-based way of living and knowing called acequia culture. And acequias are centuries-old irrigation pathways that deliver water from the high mountains to the low valleys in an arid environment where under natural circumstances, it would be very difficult to survive. So for centuries, my ancestors and folks in this area have been creating these water pathways to deliver water to the garden. With that comes this incredible culture and this process of becoming, and in my community, it's also a type of initiation to becoming a person. And through that process, you create a really deep lived relationship with the natural resource and our environment around us, specifically corn, beans, and squash. Those are like the center of our past, our current, and our future. I am a farmer. My family have all been farming this land since way before it was America, since before it was even New Spain, since time immemorial. And we still grow the same corn that our ancestors have been growing, just like my sister Elena was explaining earlier. Specifically, the corn that I'm growing is a blue corn that I got from my mentor, Don Bustos. And, you know, all seeds, especially traditional seeds, well, all seeds have a story. And when we plant these seeds in our land, we become a part of that lived story of the seed. We are that seed. And here in New Mexico, you know, we have really incredible rates of diabetes, cancer, rare illnesses that we don't even know, you know, what they are. And it's been through the work of my mentors and other folks that I've been blessed to engage with that we're really challenging these health disparities and these realities. And it's been done through holistic traditional practices. I'll share a quick little bit of my story. You know, about 12 years ago, I was 21 and I was leaving my home community that is just this incredible biodiverse environment. But like all Northern New Mexico communities, the young people, there is this phenomena called the Northern New Mexico Exodus. Everybody wants to get out of their hometown to escape violence, drugs, and all the craziness that exists in the realities of folks in this area. And I left. I left to the city of Albuquerque in search for a better life. And little did I know I would fall into the same realities that I faced here back home, because even in the city, people of color, indigenous people, land-based people face incredible adversity in trying to just become. In that journey of struggle, I found myself at a community-based volunteer organization called Los Jardines Institute, and it was through there that I started to unravel the truth of who I am, where I come from, and my ancestors, and the beauty and power that all of that is and was. It was through that I participated in a training program with Don Bustos, and I started to learn modern ways of farming to help navigate the contemporary realities that we faced outside of our traditional acequia ways of living. That journey is a journey of self-transformation. It's a journey of self-discovery. It's a journey of becoming a father. It's a journey of seeds. And really, I think that the difference for me, and I think what is really lacking in our communities these days, is mentorship and guidance. A lot of the elders here will say, oh, the young people are just on their cell phones and they don't want to work. They don't want to do anything. And in part that might be true. But for the most part, for those of us who do want to do something, we don't even have with anything to do anything with. And that is a really important thing to understand, because as it was said earlier, youth are the future. And if we don't have tools, infrastructure, knowledge, community, then how are we even to do anything? And that is why the exodus in Northern New Mexico exists. There is no platform for young farmers. There is no platform for land-based people to become who they are traditionally intended to become. So what happens is we attempt to become something else and we fail miserably at it. In my story, I was blessed to be able to maintain this knowledge through many generations and carry that forward in my work. And today, skipping through the last 8 years, I work with the GreenRoots Institute in Santa Cruz de la Cañada in modern day Española, New Mexico. I'm a community liaison with the Northern New Mexico College. I'm the visiting research scientist there, and we have a land-based agroecology learning center where we're working in community to develop spaces where the community can determine its forward direction in terms of its land base using the access that the institution could and will provide. I have so much more to share. I want to honor the space and time here. And I hope that as we move into the future, folks that are listening and are inspired by the story that I've shared, the little bit of that I've shared today, will reach out and work with us to, support the next generation of land-based people and farmers, those that don't have that platform that I talked about earlier, that don't have capital, that don't have investment, inheritance, that don't have land, nor resources, nor community food systems, infrastructure, and the realities that we face, that water being commodified and how that is really impacting our land-based culture and our ways of living and knowing. So with that, it's an honor to be with you. Bless you all today and always. And I look forward to the radical transformation of our future, where we are all a part of the conversation, where we are all united in this forward vision of what and how we need to live and heal the earth and be healed by the earth while we heal ourselves. Bless you and thank you.
Thank you, Joseluis. So we're gonna right now transition to like a moderated conversation, and just a reminder for folks to speak at a pace for our lovely translators to keep up. And if folks have any questions, you can drop it in the Q&A section here. But I wanted to start out with a question about, Elena, since you talked about seeds. And yes, I've had the pleasure of cooking with and eating the food of Elena at a hunter-gatherer potluck in the HoChunk headquarters up in Wisconsin. That was amazing. Tasted flavors I'd never tasted before, and it was beautiful. So I wanted to ask about seed sovereignty and the role of seed rematriation in food justice and what that looks like. And, you know, the other thing within Chicago Food Policy Action Council, we have internally as a staff used the Three Sisters as a metaphor for organizing, in that the gourd, you know, keeps the weeds at bay and keeps, you know, the moisture in, and the beans, you know, fertilizing the ground, and the corns, you know, being the structure. But yeah, wondering, and I know I asked a couple questions in that, but just seed sovereignty and the metaphors for organizing, and how do we reimagine that in the work that we're doing?
So you really need to understand that, and it's almost a change in your thinking, that these seeds have a purpose, that they want to grow into these incredible plants, and that, you know, in preserving this life form, this beautiful baby seed, you know, that we have to keep it protected from stuff like chemicals that will alter it, or toxic soil. And it is not a fast moving, you know, process to be able to provide the environment that we need to for the seeds, and then to ensure their protection and growing. But when you're able to do that, and if it means, so I actually have a bean plant right now multiplying bean seeds for me, so I'll have enough for a raised garden bed this year for the wild berries. But it means that I have to isolated grow that so that it is protected, and it isn't going to transform it very much, you know, that it will be maintain its genetic structure. And there is a lot that needs to happen. There are some tribes that have actually their seeds, certain seeds on their tribal rolls. So they have the same rights as tribal members, because they are recognized for their beauty and their necessity in our, you know, daily life, our culture, our traditions, our ceremonies. And so I think that when we look at the greater scheme, we need to treat all seeds like that, right? Like, all seeds have a story. They all came for a reason and a being, and they all have this purpose to nourish us. So it doesn't have to be an ancestral seed to have to protect it that way. You know, even organic seeds need protection. All of these ways that we can feed our communities need to be protected, and we need to start with the seed and the soil and make sure that the environment we create, just like what you were saying, the Three Sisters can be a metaphor on structure. Like, we have to create an environment for ourselves, the seeds that we plant in our communities, the people that do the work and feel the connection to do that work, and we have to provide a space where they will thrive. So just like we might need soil restoration, we need grassroots support. We need to transform the system to be able to provide what we as growers, as, you know, advocates, consumers, need to do to support those efforts. It's the same with the seed. And I like to think of it that way too. You know, we are the ones that are growing with this process as well. And so when we rethink how we see those seeds, you know, it's not just something that we feed the birds, or, you know, that is kind of grown and not thought about. It's something that we nurture, that we talk to, we care for. And the more we do that, the more it thrives and produces. And the same is true with our communities.
Yeah, and if I could share just a little bit on that, and thank you, Elena. You know, here in New Mexico, we have a saying, and some of you maybe have heard this. It's a Spanish saying, and it goes like this: "Uno para mí, uno para vos, y uno para los animalitos de Dios." And what that literally translates to, it's one for me, one for us, and one for the animals that Creator has gifted us with, right? And when you think about that, removes the I, and that's something that my mentors and elders and teachers have always taught me. We got to get beyond the individualized perspective, and the seeds clearly teach us that when we use that thought, we are always leaving enough for the other. We're also leaving enough for the environment, and with that, that's really a metaphor for sharing the abundance, for sharing the hardship, for sharing the struggle. Lately, I've been saying, become as a seed becomes. That's been kind of like my saying, right? And when you think about that, seeds go through this incredible transformation from generation to generation, this metamorphosis of germination and pulling from the soil the nutrients it needs to survive and thrive, and then pass on its genetic knowledge and memory onto the next generation. And that's how it's been going on, for thousands and thousands of years. If we be as a seed becomes, what that really means is we are biodiverse, we are healthy, we are creating and cultivating the soil for the seed, our environment. And I think the seeds are a very powerful inspirer and a very powerful teacher. And when we use the lessons of seeds to help guide us, whether that be in our organizational work, in our community work, seeds are a really incredible teacher. And yeah, I just want to encourage folks to really consider how us as individual seeds, all seeds go back to the beginning of time, and how we also are tied to that in how we've eaten and nourished ourselves from these seeds, and we have within us that stored lived memory. I also always tell my students, there's not a whole lot that I could teach you, but the seeds and the soil and the land and the space can help you remember. And I think that's where the lesson of seeds really empowers me, is it encourages me to remember my truth, our truth, and our collective lived realities, and how we share in this struggle, and also in the survival and the success of our communities.
I have a follow-up, since the theme is radical reimagination, and I think about imagination a lot. And I'm curious, and we have a question that I'll get to after this, but I did want to ask about this, because you just said how seeds, or like the environment, can help us remember. I'm curious for both of you all, what memories do you have? And it could be in relation to the environment, to seeds, to growing, to cooking, that fuel your imagination. Like what memories do you have, either growing up or last week, or I know memory is a funny thing, but what fuels your imagination in this world of environment and food?
You want me to go first? Okay. I just want to say, before I answer that question, that I absolutely love you, Joseluis. I'm so glad that we got to connect through this. When we both have the same vision of a mentorship, and this work can't be ego driven. It's a very strong premise in forward motion, and saying that it isn't about me, but it's about them, and it's about us, and moving others past where we are at, and supporting them in doing that. So I love that. That's the work that you do also. For me, I definitely like to look at the whole food system. And one of the most beautiful memories I have is actually for the support. I mean, I'm a processor. I love supporting my community. And, for seeds to thrive, you need pollinators, and you need these other plants that will bring in some of those key points to be able to have your ecosystem whole. And I absolutely I remember when I was young, going out and picking and harvesting milkweed with my grandmother and my grandpa, and it hurt my fingers, and it was really hard to get, but every part of that plant is usable. And when we get this fresh batch, I have like a paper bag and dump it on my grandma's picnic blanket, and I would be so proud in owning that I was able to provide a little bit for my family in doing that at a young age. And it was not fantastic. It wasn't this enormous harvest, but to me it was. And they made me feel like it was. And knowing that you can't look at one aspect of our food system, that you really have to appreciate that all of it is crucial in maintaining a healthy environment for thriving, that we need wild plants, we need cultivators. And those memories of not realizing, when my grandmas would say, okay, now we're going to go out and we're going to spread the seed, we're going to go hit these plants that we didn't take or that the butterflies didn't need, and we're going to try and get that out a little bit more. And those wild seeds would multiply and support us in other ways as well. And then when we had our garden here, our first year, it's very sandy soil where I live in Wisconsin Dells. And it was an upward battle this first year with my garden. It's almost like you can't hope that things won't happen. You just have to expect that you will have, obstacles you have to overcome when you grow, right? There's so many factors that are unpredictable that can affect your crop. And I looked at this plot and I said, we just have to produce something. And as the corn started sprouting and as the squash and, the other things, we had some melons that we grew. The most beautiful thing for me was that this incredible patch of milkweed started growing, and the raspberry bushes that lined our fence flourished for weeks, where normally you might be able to get, a handful maybe for a couple days during the peak ripe season. And as the growing season continued, we ended up getting more of these wild plants. We got grapes and sumac that was just like hanging down off of the sumac trees. And all of these things brought in what we needed to help transform this space that was overridden with evasive plants and, pests that we got squash bugs and all these obstacles. And we ended up getting enough corn to plant more rows next year. And we ended up getting enough seed for the next year to continue. And so I really think that, for me, it's how when one might need more help, another shows up in plenty and it brings what we need to nourish. And that's kind of the way that our community works as well.
Beautiful. Thank you for that. So inspiration for me. So when I left my home community, I wasn't paying attention. I was focused on leaving. And when I was gone, and we always say this, in order for you to really value where you come from, you got to leave and see the world. And when I was gone, I looked back at my community and I remember this like green, lush fields everywhere. And then 10 years later, I come back to this community with this vision in mind of planting and growing and living in community. And my community isn't the same. In the last 10 years, there's been so much culture loss, land loss, knowledge loss, that I came back to a community of fellow land, a community of people who aren't as willing to be in community and share in the resource and accomplish great things. And, I live in my grandmother's home. She got this home from her grandmother and so on and so forth. It's probably over 300 years old. And I live on land that now belongs to my aunties and my uncles. And I hear stories of how my grandparents planted it all and all my aunties and uncles were out there working the fields. And I remember when I was young, when it would come to the spring acequia cleaning, there would be hundreds of young people from all the surrounding communities that would come to help clear the path for the water to flow. And that too is a metaphor of how we heal ourselves. And that's what has really inspired me is I see although we have experienced so much loss, although there has been such an incredible impact of colonialism and globalization on our traditional land-based life ways, there is still so much left. And there's still so much opportunity to heal and to continue the work that our ancestors fought so hard to maintain. And that really inspires me. I can see how returning back to a way of living that is more in tune with nature and being a part of nature is really the medicine that we all need, the world included, to have a really solid, powerful future. So looking around in my community and seeing dry pieces of land, I really see green, lush fields and farms and intricate community-based food systems. And I can see that not so much as a fantasy or as like this idea that I'm creating in my mind, but because I've seen it. I've seen it being done. I've seen Don Bustos and Richard Moore and Sofia Martinez and the Agricultura Network in the South Valley of Albuquerque shape the environment through agriculture. And I truly believe that if we can all come together, like my sister Elena said, beyond race, class, ethnicity, religion, all the things that make us different, if we could unite in that in a real way, we can really create a future that is healthy and that has the potential to sustain all life, and also re-empower the local communities, the indigenous communities, the land-based communities that are our teachers, that are the example. I keep saying that modern day land movements really need to step up and acknowledge indigenous and land-based agriculture and the ancestors that continue that as the foremothers to this movement. And I think that's really a part of that. And that's been what has guided me in coming back home, is acknowledging my ancestors as the foremothers that have laid out the groundwork so I can even come to a home to live. And through that, my aunties, we're now growing gardens and healing them. Last year we grew a big field, and my auntie came to me and said, you saved my life. I was at home doing nothing, and now I'm farming and growing again. And she was in tears, and she thanked me on Christmas Day, and that was just really powerful, full circle of how the land is healing just my family, and how making that radical change in myself to decide to come back home to a place where there isn't a whole lot of opportunity, and see the environment in its future potential, to inspire me to continue to do this work, and how healing that is. So I'm done talking. Thank you.
Wow, you guys there's a lot of love going on in the chat. So appreciate these stories that inspire you all, that of your memories, and for sharing. We have a question that's been sitting in the Q&A that I want to ask on behalf of this person. So the question is, how has COVID-19 affected your farm income? Have you increased your revenue? Have you pivoted in your approach to farming? Have you had to cut back on your production?
So I'll share a little bit on this. Before the pandemic happened, we had this plan to implement at the Learning Center at Northern New Mexico College. And we had this vision of youth, and we had made collaborations. We were having youth interns, and suddenly one day to the next, all that was changed. COVID restrictions didn't allow us to have many people at the farm. The farmers market dramatically changed. And even for myself, I had to, ask myself, is it worth it to go to the farmers market, or is it worth it to go out there in the community, distribute this food, and possibly bring that back home to my elders? And ultimately, I think one of the outcomes to the decision that I made to limit me going out in order to protect my elders, mentors, and my family, was that what it meant was that I was going to be giving away a lot of food. And I did. We probably gave away 60% of the 10,000 pounds of food that we grew. the resource that I would have made on selling that food was dramatically changed, but somehow naturally order was established, and financially I have no complaints, and I really appreciated being able to give away food. We gave away food to a midwife food bank that were distributing food to the mothers that they have been helping, and that is a huge honor. And I think that a lot of times as farmers, like we reflected, we think like our survival is really dependent upon the distribution of our food and the sales of the vegetables that we grow. And we are often as considerate of the natural elements that are at play when one gives away food, and how the karma around that, the spirit of that food turns in our favor and things start to happen. That really has, the pandemic has really changed how we are looking at how we're distributing food, how we're engaging people at the farm to help grow food, how we're teaching people on how to grow food. And really, a lot of people are just turning to it and growing food themselves. I think seeds were one of the highest Google searches last year. So people are transforming in their own home, which is really encouraging us to take knowledge to people's homes and share this information with folks so that they can grow their own food. And a lot of times people will say, well, you're kind of talking yourself out of a customer, right, when you teach somebody. But that goes back to the we, right? If we can root in the we, in that three sisters, it really, if the community is doing well and if the community is healthy, we're healthy. And we got to have a belief in that those traditional systems, they work, even if we can't see it under this modern globalized capitalistic colonized mentality that we're forced to live under. So yeah, trust. And I'm done. Thank you.
And our traditional food systems were never about excess, right? It was about being able to provide for each other, and what might thrive in one region would help nourish others, and you would share and barter and make sure that everyone was being taken care of. And I agree, Joseluis, it's almost like this incredible reciprocated caretaking happened, when you trust the journey and you know that this is what needs to be done, you get rewarded in other ways, and you're always taken care of, even if that is down the road somebody that you shared that extra abundance with is able to give that back to you. And one of our core teachings is when you need something, it will come to you, but give that back, tenfold, or however you can at the time that you can. And that's what makes us be able to get progress. And there was this enormous search for seeds last year, and part of that was an anxiety, because food security is real. We don't have it in our communities right now, and people trying to get the control of their food systems is beautiful, but it has to be partnered with the education, because there will be obstacles, and it isn't something that you can just do. And the more you learn about it, the more you're able to provide that environment for thriving and production. But I agree, and I was in the same situation. I'm not primarily a producer, but I work very closely with a lot of others, and even the environmental catastrophes that we had to endure as a country, as a continent last year, were huge. But there was this beautiful movement of growers that provided during that time, and that was able to bring recognition to the work that they're doing. So instead of lingering on these obstacles that we all had to overcome as a community, there was this wonderful uprising and reimagination of our food system, and really being able to unite on so many levels and support each other. So it was, I think, a hard awakening, and acknowledgement that this work needs to be valued a lot more than it has been, and that it has continued to happen regardless of the attention that it's received. And it is because of the people doing the grassroots work and providing for their community that we have what we do today. So how can we expand that for, this next year, and make sure that we don't have those families in our communities, our families that are facing hunger? Because if you're hungry, you can't be healthy, and if you have those worries about how you're going to feed your family, you can't have a healthy family, and it is something that non-judgmentally, I think a lot of us have had to face at some point in our life, this, where am I going to get the resources to be able to provide, even if it isn't for your immediate family, it's for your community, and being able to offer support and even, give out what you have that's extra is beautiful. And it started happening in these wonderful ways last year. So I'm just blessed to have witnessed it.
Yeah, we definitely we saw that here in Chicago, and for myself and Mirage Sheik, we started with Chicago Food Policy Action Council mid-January, so we hit we hit the food system in Chicago right as things were getting disrupted, and have had a tremendous year of doing this access work. I want to get to a question that was in the chat that 20 minutes ago this person asked, and I just thought it was a great question. They're asking, would it help if we begin to shift the narrative to seeds and nature as subjects instead of objects? How could we begin to do this?
I think that would be a very powerful way to move forward. One of the things is, if we start seeing seeds as they are, as subjects, as spirits, as life beings, as life forces, then it really shifts how we see the food that we eat. It really shifts how we see the environment that we navigate. I'll tell you, if you, for example, my mentor, Don, he's always saying this, I know every plant that's at my farm. I know every single one. In the morning, I walk through the farm and I say hello, and I talk to them, and I sing to them, and I dance with them, and I engage in life experience with them. There is a co-creative relationship that happens there. And when you can really see your seeds in that way, they suddenly become the they become the reason, right? They become the medicine to what ails us. They become our superheroes. And that's something very, very powerful. When we can see a seed's greatest potential in its seed form, then we come outside of ourselves. We become a part of it instead of it being there to serve us. Then we become in servitude to that seed to see it follow through. And that's kind of the farmer's story, right? We spend the year giving so that the plants can, nourish us and our families. And then we promise to save the seed so that we can pass on its generation. And I think that if communities were to really practice that, things would drastically change in the spaces and places where we live, work, play, pray, and learn. I think that's a really powerful way to redefine the future in how we engage. And then lastly, considering the natural element of that, right, and how nature has its law. If we acknowledge seeds as subjects, then if we acknowledge seeds as bodies and spirits as opposed to things, then we allow nature to guide us. And there's nothing more powerful than that, I truly believe. I'm done. Thank you.
Elena, would you like to add any?
Yeah, I could add a little bit. It's about coexisting and respecting, our space and the seed space and the wild and supportive plants that show up, and really saying that it is valued. I mentioned before that there are some tribes that give their ancestral seeds membership and protect them. And we really need to think of that as a being that we have to care for. And in return, it will care for us. And that's the philosophy that we need to take with each other as well, that we care for each other and support each other, and we will take care of each other. And I think that Joseluis touched on it. The seeds kind of guide us, and the food kind of guides us into the direction that we need to say they're here, right? I'm here and I need you to do this for me. And if you do this, I will fulfill my destiny. I will be able to be what I was meant to be. And they do in these beautiful ways. And the more that we respect their place in amongst us and the role that they have for us, we realize the mindfulness of our role towards them and what we need to do to care for them.
And even like the nourishment that's needed in those early stages that defines I think early childhood, right? When we're creating life, we think about okay, we need to nourish them, but then it's like so much defines the trajectory of this plant, of this person, based on how they were nourished from the beginning. So I like thinking about that nourishment. We have a couple of more questions and we got 5 minutes left, but someone did, and this has been in the Q&A for a minute, but it's in reference to Joseluis. In your opening remark, you referenced financial capital. What specifically do you see as the need and solutions?
So I think that there's basic and also intricate solutions to the needs that farmers, especially young farmers, face. Very simplistic. Folks who have land, let other people grow on their land if they're not using that to cultivate. Place your land in conservation easements so that it can be dedicated to farming for many years to come. That is one land, and I hate to, because land isn't a commodity, but it's a huge resource for farmers to even just have access. We're in the time where landless realities are real for land-based communities. And I think that even in just small spaces, people investing in their own health and diet through buying food from a local farmer, that's going to drastically transform a farmer's ability to do it. Policy wise, and even social movement wise, land-based communities and farmers are really should be at least in part at the center of why we do what we do. Without a healthy future, without healthy food, we can't fight for anything, right? And if we put them at the center, if we put land-based communities, farmers at the center of why we do what we do, then we can really start to focus on creating opportunities to develop farmers, small farmers. Here in northern New Mexico, the farmer is going extinct. Rather than extinct, I like to say we're being erased. And that's real because modern agriculture is sort of wiping us out. And then two, a lot of times people think, well, farmers just ain't that smart. And that's so far from the truth. I've seen some of the world's smartest people that are just farmers, right? And there's this level of trust where institutions that have access to capital, they don't know how to loan or give farmers capital to launch their projects. And I think it really goes back to founding ourselves in principles that are in tune with nature. I really, really like the HEMIS principles for democratic organizing. If anybody's ever, thought about that, or you want to research it, I live under those environmental justice and economic justice principles and values. If institutions and individuals were to live by values like that, that would be one way to shift capital to support land-based communities. And then too, the physical activity, I think that's a capital that not a lot of people think about, the capital of health. If folks are engaging in the growing of their own food, there's an energy exchange. There's a transfer of wisdom that happens in that process, and the outcome is health. So when communities are healthy, there is more resource, there is more sweat equity, there is more volunteerism, there is more financial support, and there's more belief in community-based systems and their potential to work. So I have so much more to say on that, but I'm going to stop there so that my sister can share this space. Thank you so much.
Well, we're gonna, so just a couple of things. At 12:15, we're gonna have a more informal Q&A. We'll allow people to actually talk from the participants and ask questions directly. I do want to thank you all for, this is the 16th annual Chicago Food Justice Summit. Encourage folks, if you're having any technical difficulties with accessing any of the sessions, please email, put it in the chat, put it in the HOOVA community board. Just want to give a special shout out to the Flavor and Reimagination tracks. It's not a track, I shouldn't say, it's just additional additional information, resources that enrich the experience. So for example, we have a special video that Dream of Wild Health did with you, Elena Terry, on making hominy candy. So we put that in our program as like, hey, check this out. So there's resources and links like that woven into the program, so make sure that you check it out. Also, like, take care of yourselves, take breaks as you need it. Right now we're gonna take a break, but I just want to give a huge thank you to Elena and Joseluis, all the sponsors, all the volunteers, all the summit leaders, everybody involved, the SIPPAC staff that have made this happen. This year is the first time, we're doing it this way. And it couldn't have started in a more beautiful, poetic way. So much gratitude. We're gonna keep this open at 12:15. We'll be back. Thank you all.
and take the trip. Though there may be wet road ahead and you cannot slip, just move on up. For peace you'll find into the steeple of beautiful people where there's only one kind. So hush not, child, and don't cry. Your folks might understand you by and by. Move on up and keep on wishing. Remember your dream is your only scheme, so keep on pushing. Take nothing less than the supreme best. Do not obey rumors people say, but you can pass the test. Just move on up to a greater day. With just a little faith, if you put your mind to it, you can surely do it. Just move on up. Move on up. We move on up. Watch out, we just move on up. We move on up. Move on up. Mother, mother, there's too many of you crying. Brother, 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 there's far too many of you dying. You know we've got to find a way to bring some loving here today. Yeah. Father, Father, we don't need to escalate. You see, war is not the answer, for only love can conquer hate. You know we've got to find a way to bring some love in here today. Oh, picket lines and picket signs, don't punish me with brutality. Talk to me so you can see. Oh, what's going on? What's going on? What's going on? Yeah, what's going on? Oh, what's going on? What's going on? Right now. Right on. Right on. Everybody thinks we're wrong. Oh, but who are they to judge us? Simply cause our hair is long. Oh, you know we've got to find a way. Bring some understanding here today. Oh, oh, oh. Pick it loud.
Hey everybody, so we can start bringing it back. Just having some conversations back with Joseluis and Elena. How y'all doing today? We appreciate the conversation that you had with us. You both are super inspirational, very iconic, and very grateful to have y'all both opening up this summit that we have. Joseluis, like if you want to plug that.
Yeah, thank you so very, very much. Yeah, I just want to let folks know that I'm going to have to check out here in about 15 minutes. I don't want to because I'm just totally vibrating on this. But yeah, just thanks again for having me. I really appreciate Dakar for all the work that you guys do and for including us. It's an honor.
Absolutely. So I could start off and just hopping into like a couple of questions that I had personally. But one of them is kind of based on this quote that I caught yesterday from Grace Lee Boggs. And the quote goes like this: it's like building community is to the collective as spiritual practices to the individual. And just understanding that dismantling systems of oppression and community-based work is a beautiful process, but it's often laborious. And that oftentimes like we could spread ourselves thin, right? So in the spirit of like being able to show up for ourselves, to show up for other people, what are some of the practices that you two incorporate to refill your glasses? And also if you want to share, like what are some ways that you all kind of like build with community to like love on each other and refill like your communal glasses that y'all have?
So I'll jump in real quick, sister, if that's okay. In all of my experience working in community, one of the greatest lessons I learned is that this is a long distance run and it's not a 500-yard dash, right? And oftentimes, because there's just so much adversity, hardship, struggle, injustice, historically and contemporarily in our communities, we are on this rush to kind of fix things. And I'm often reminded that, it's taken us 500 years to get here, and it's going to be impossible to fix it overnight. So once you set that pace, then it's really the focus is to slow down a little bit, and really value and appreciate the moments that we have. So for me, it really has been about not wanting to broadcast myself out there to every single person, and really honing in and nourishing and enriching the relationships that I have that are close to me. Those relationships with my elders, with my family members, with my daughter, with my partner, and being okay with not being out there doing it or speaking on it or talking about it, but knowing that the real lived practice of justice is held in the home, and allowing the home life to be the medicine that gives us the energy to get back out there and do what we do. So yeah, it's a long distance journey, a long distance run that will likely go past my generation. And if that's the case, then investing that time, energy, and knowledge into our children and the youth and future generations, while cultivating the relationship and taking care of our elders, that's really where the movement is for me. Thank you.
I agree with you again, Joseluis. I mean, both of us work with mentorship programs, and part of that is because that's the way we naturally learn and retain that information. And it for me, right? I know that right now there's a lot of talk on food is medicine, right? What does that really mean? For me, it means something different from, I would hope from others, because for me, it's the process, and the healing comes in being able to make those connections with my community members to say that I got, this vegetable from Joseluis, or this wild rice from this person, and knowing those stories. And when I put together a dish and I'm able to present it, it's not me, it's me having the last say and the last touch before we share. And for me, that part is healing. I rarely get to eat my meals. So for me, the healing comes in making those friendships, my brothers, my sisters that are doing the same work, and knowing that those vegetables are going to be so much more flavorful and nutritious because they came from somebody with good intentions that cared for them. It wasn't just something that you can go and get off the shelf. It has to be cultivated in certain ways. And there's a lot in the guidance that comes from those traditional teachings that help me stay grounded, literally in the ground that my ancestors walked on. The smells and the feel, that's the healing part. And that's the connection that I have, not only with the work that I do, but with so many others that do this beautiful work also.
Wow. Thank you for that, Elena. And that just brought something to mind that I just want to share. We've been on this mission to have like completely sourced meals that are directly from ourselves or from our community. And, we bless our food. And, for the last year or so, every meal that we've had has just been this powerful source of nutrition. And I realized that some of this food, all of the food, we don't even need to bless. It's actually blessing us. So our prayers become this gratitude session of just giving thanks for all the people who have participated in naming them, as we're naming what ingredient is in our meals. And when you say, food is medicine, that's really that's where the medicine comes in. Know your farmer. That's another thing, is know where you're getting your food. And when you do that and you go through the blessing of your food and you know who grew it, that food really, really is a blessing and medicinal, and it's just cleansing and all the other ways that food empowers us. So yeah, thank you for bringing that up, sister.
Yeah, like it's all full circle. Like all of this work is like very like regenerative, right? And it was a question from the chat that I think that folks weren't able to present, but the question goes, how can land-based communities support and be supported by some of the social movements that's happening?
So I'll go first, sister. And I don't want to always jump in first because I want to honor you and respect you too. I think, again, going back to making small farmers and land-based people the center and the core of our work, why we do what we do. And also I'm always just thinking of my mentors and the things that they teach. And while I was on this call, I got a text message from Richard Moore, who's just an incredible mentor of mine. And I think this ties into this question about communities. Like, always remember where you come from, whose shoulders we stand on, and giving back to others what has been given to us. Those values and principles at the core of community movements and social movements. If we remember that, then that keeps us grounded. It keeps us rooted. And again, small farmers and land-based communities really should be at the core of every social movement, not only at the core, but a part of the core in why we do what we do. And that's all I'm going to say for now. Thank you. And thank you for letting me go first, Elena.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, that it applies to what you were talking about, and really land-based communities, when that is a stretch for some, because like you had mentioned, Joseluis, some don't have access to any land or any space to fulfill their dreams or to be able to take action. So even what some might take for granted, having a dusty, overgrown plot is more than others have. And so how can we support in getting those resources to those who have the dreams to continue or to build? And how can we make that adaptation for different spaces that we reside in and provide those resources in ways where, an urban garden will thrive? And how can we support those people that live in that space that don't have access to some of the basics that we take for granted? And that's where we really need to shift that focus and giving back and providing for those that don't have that, and being able to lift them up and pave the way a little bit, and be able to give them not only the education, but the resources to help move in a direction of, being self-sustainable.
Absolutely. And for all of y'all tuning in, also, if you have any questions, tap into the raise hand feature, and then we can spotlight you and give you some space to kind of share with Joseluis and Elena. But another one, because I know you two both have relationships with like academia and research institutions. So understanding that like many under-resourced community members can find some opportunities to further their work through support of academia. Would you all both be able to describe the relationship building process while working with academic institutions, and I guess some practices that you all incorporate with navigating, like finding some balance and maintaining leadership integrity with your projects, and focus on like community building, whereas like some of the relationship that you all may have with the academic institutions may be looking at like more research heavy incentives?
All right, just because I'm going to get ready to jump off. Okay, so I am the visiting research professor at Northern New Mexico College for a program called Sostenga, which is a land-based agroecology learning center space. And, when we first took this location and occupied it, it had been a couple years that no one had been really, using that space to organize. And we came in there as community members, as partners to the institution to just utilize the space. We signed an MOU. They said you can use the space as long as you create a learning space for our students and faculty to engage in. And that was, absolutely, that's part of our goal. I think where it really started to shift was organizing with the faculty and putting together a core group of interested community members and faculty members to start to design what the community really wants for that space. What we did was we rooted our participation there in the grassroots. So we came in with an idea of what we wanted to do, but we didn't come in with a plan. Our plan was to grow and allow through that growing process for things to unfold. And we really wanted our work to be informed by the community, by the students at the institution, by the faculty, and also by the community at large. And so we started listening, and we started having sessions where we would meet and talk about what the visions are, what the previous folks who designed the program in its early days, what their vision was, and we started to implement that in the process. Ultimately, we're still in our process, but what came from that was this visiting research professor position. It had never been had in this program before. And what it really allowed us was the navigability of the institution as a faculty member. Our hopes is that being able to be a actual faculty member of the college and also be a liaison for the community, we will be able to utilize the college capacities to generate resources, to create infrastructures, and to develop opportunities where the community and all interested parties can engage in land-based ways of living and knowing that is tied to their traditional roots, but also creates economic and cultural opportunities so that we can create pathways to success outside of the dominant paradigm, the American dream, if you will, and having the institution having the institution's capacities really has given the community a great opportunity to get in there, participate, and also design for its own self-determination. So I'll leave it at that. Thank you. I'm done talking.
Thank you, Joseluis.
Before you have to jump off, Joseluis, thank you so much for your inspiring conversation. And I hope that, in the future, our paths cross again. I'm always here if you need any help or resources. Keep doing the wonderful work you are.
Thank you, sister. This has been just a huge inspiration. Your work, what you share is really powerful. And I just want to encourage you to just keep on keeping on any way that I could be of service to the work that you do. And also you as well, Brother Dakarai, any way that I can support you all, I'm here. Let's stay in touch in any capacity, at any platform. We're of the same family, of the same roots, and we just got to keep on communicating and sharing our experience, sharing our stories, and share some of your delicious food, Elena. Bless you guys.
Absolutely. Thank you, Joseluis. We appreciate you.
Thanks. All right, so I guess I will follow up a little bit on that. And when it comes to some of my academic collaborations, one of the biggest things I personally need to make sure I address every time is intellectual property. And that is really when it comes to our ancestral seeds, or what some may call restorative agriculture, is really our traditional agriculture, indigenous agricultural systems that we need to go back to restore our environment. And so a lot of the things, they're great partnerships to have as far as, facilitating, like Joseluis said, helping create infrastructure and navigate in spaces that, we haven't necessarily navigated before or thrived in as indigenous agriculture or culinarians even. One good example, though, is I do have a partnership with UW-Madison and the horticulture, and they grew for me some seeds. Part of it was just to be able to grow because they had access to it and they had some space available. And I went and checked on those plots several times over the course of the growing season. And at harvest, I was able to get those seeds and process them. And in return, I took food science notes and documented how they responded to different processing measures. So if I boiled them first and then dried them, or nixtamalized them after drying, and just to see how they reacted. But the beautiful part about that was several months after I kind of got all my notes together and was able to give a little bit back to the academic community on how these seeds were so resilient and they preserved so well. I was able to take those seeds from the UW-Madison to the UW Stout in, northwestern Wisconsin, and do a meal for the students in the Native American student organization there. And to say that this corn came from Madison, that your peers in Madison that you might have never come in contact with, that were indigenous and supporting this effort, grew. And now I'm able to bring them to you and share from this wonderful community that we are starting, right now today, and saying that we are going to support each other. And but you do have to be respectful of those lines and make sure that you ask for what you need to in the support that they're able to give. So I know sometimes, the seeds might become property of the university just based on how their systems are set up, or the intellectual property that's shared would become their property. So it's important that you analyze those relationships and that you make it clear on what you need and what you can provide. But in doing that, you get this whole extra amount of support. And sometimes that is facilitating a larger grant that could support your community. So there are definitely resources, and I love the partnerships that I have with, my academic sources, and being able to support and to drive the narrative when it comes to educating on our foods.
Absolutely. Wow. So what advice would you give to, a small beginning business when approached by an academic institution when saying like, this is a relationship that I should lean into, or I maybe should like reconsider, or like some things that I should like look for?
Well, you definitely need to know what your end goal is. And I think having small goals, like this year, I can realistically get this done. And the support that I need to get this goal met right now could be because I was able to get, a $5,000 rural urban grant and get some seeds. And I know that with that $5,000, I can build 3 boxes and get some soil. It is a lot more expensive than people realize in doing these growing efforts, and the obstacles that you have to overcome, especially in urban growing situations with soil restoration and land accessibility. And so making those realistic goals for yourself and saying, I can reach out to this network, like this wonderful network that we have here, these events, making those connections with people that have already done it, and kind of aligning yourself with being able to see, like Joseluis and I were saying, the mentorship part of this is crucial in being able to say, like, I have cleared the path. I've kind of found these ways that I need to navigate, and I did that so that you won't have to. So come to me and I'll share that knowledge. And I might not be able to share that with 1,000 of you, but I can definitely help support a few of you in going forward, and with the expectation that you will then share that knowledge with more that are wanting to come up and learn this way of, providing and caring and being stewards of our food systems in a way that's responsible, and that is sharing that knowledge. So definitely use your networks, reach out, and sometimes it's even just a Google search to find out who is doing similar work, and calling them up. I have never had anybody hang up on me when I've called to reach out for advice or support. I have never hung up on anybody that has asked me at least for some direction, and making those contacts and really organically letting those networks happen and flow together is what is strengthening our food system. So definitely make those connections and those friendships and see how you can support each other in moving forward. And if that is academia, then definitely go through that route, because there are a lot of resources out there available in partnering with, say, a university or a larger area that can provide resources but doesn't want to do the work. They want to support you in doing that work.
Right. And I guess like in the spirit of like lifting while we climb, like who are some of the people that you kind of leaned into when beginning this work and kind of inspired you and served as mentors? And speaking to that experience.
Well, I was really blessed in being able to be part of the Native American Food Sovereignty Alliance and, the American Indian Foods Program. And there has always been this grassroots movement. And I think we mentioned it before. I started as a traditional and ceremonial cook, and I worked in restaurants for a decade in every capacity possible. I was a dishwasher, I was a server, I was a front of house manager. And at one point I was like, I really need to trust that my passion is in my food. And if I can invest in preserving and educating and letting people experience what I do when I'm around my food or cooking my food or, sharing meals, then I need to trust that that's the journey I need to take, right? And so I had Loretta Barrett Oden, who is like the OG of Indigenous food. She had a restaurant, decades ago in Santa Fe, and kind of said, we can do this. And then, my good friend Sean Sherman or Brian Yazzie, when I went to a food summit, I got to cook with all of them, and all of them had such different approaches to their vision on food sovereignty when it came to Indigenous foods in our communities. And being able to have such a wide variety of approaches, but know that we all had the same end goal in taking these approaches, just helped me realize that, I can have my own vision. I can cook whatever I want, however I want to, and make it relatable so people might connect with me, that might be a little bit intimidated by the total decolonized diet. But I'm kind of a middle ground, like if you start incorporating some of these healthier ingredients or indigenous ingredients into your diet, you're going to want them more. And then you can move towards that. It doesn't have to be one end of the spectrum or another. And having a community of support like that, of Indigenous chefs that all kind of relate on different levels. I am the lead mentor now for the program alongside one of my favorites, Arlie Dockstader. And it's just incredible for us to have, a male and a female with all these up and coming Indigenous cooks and chefs be able to relate to us and know that like we are here for support. And it isn't about me. It never was about me. It was always about us and how can we move together and how can we provide, and having those kind of clear the way for me have definitely on so many levels. Jessica Greendeer is my seed saver, and I get to work at Dream of Wild Health a couple weeks out of the summer in Minnesota with the youth. And so when I go up there, I'm very mindful of how I carry myself and support them, because it's about them, right? And how can we support them? So if we all kind of either be that person or find that person that can help us support, it just, like I said, builds our network and really gives us a stronger unified front to approach our food systems and say, that one isn't better than another, that we all can kind of have the spectrum of approaching our food systems and providing that security for each other, however we want to relate or thrive.
Yes, in a very collective way. That's great. So I guess like in these last couple of minutes with you, some next steps and like some things that we could support you on, and just giving us some updates about like how we could be involved in your process, or like some folks that we should look out for and supporting in that.
Yes, I remember I had talked to you a few weeks ago and said, I really do miss home and I really miss being in the city. I think with COVID and just being respectful of the environment and kind of hunkering down and, not having a lot of contact with people, I've realized more now than ever how much the city means to me, and Chicagoland and the community and the resources that we have. So I do want to come down, and I'm going to be working with the Chicago Botanical Society to do a little bit of growing and hopefully have some opportunity to interact with the community there. And I had mentioned before, I would love to be able to do something to support what you're doing in the community gardens and urban growing in Chicago. So hopefully we can make something like that happen where I'll be able to have a little bit more hands-on time with the community and just be able to support what's going on there and go home and really be a part of it. And so hopefully we'll be able to get that done. In the meantime, you know, everybody can do a little bit from here in reclamation and, you know, re-envisioning what we can do for each other to support a stronger food system. And so hopefully when we leave each other today, you know, the seeds of inspiration have been planted in me, even from this conversation, and being able to make those connections and just be able to interact and support in any way that I can the efforts for growing, because it's crucial and the work is beautiful. So keep doing it. Don't let yourself get defeated by things. You know, strength comes from struggle, and being able to overcome those things gives you a lot in individuals and in community. So, you know, we have a chance to rewrite this narrative and to move forward in supporting each other and to really make attainable goals for our today. So I am here as a resource, and I'm so blessed. Thank you so much for inviting me to the table today, and, you know, just to share a conversation and to let you know that you're not alone doing this work, and that you have this beautiful community of people willing to put something like this together to support and to inspire and to radically reimagine our food systems, right? So you guys have been an inspiration to me as well. Keep doing the beautiful work you're doing, and thank you.
Thank you, Elena. Lane. We've been inspired, and we greatly appreciate you for hopping in and having this conversation with us. Thank you.
Thank you. Take care.
All right. And thank you all for joining in on this conversation. And we'll start picking things back up at 1. And I also forgot to, I guess, introduce myself. I'm Dakari Howard, and I am the Supply Chain Development Specialist here with the Chicago Food Policy Action Council. So yeah, we'll come back at 1 and enjoy the rest of the sessions for today. Thank you.